The concept of Globelics is interesting because often you see when northern academics relate to southern academics, there is a power relationship. It's not a relationship of equals. And what was good about us being involved, the developing country people, being involved in it, was to talk to the people in the northern academics to tell them that what we want is not someone to think for us or work for us or do something to us. No, we don't want that. We want something to work with. I mean, people to work with. Northern academics working with southern academics.
We in the developing part of the world, we know much more about their problems than otherwise, than they know about our problems. Why? Because we're connected to them in all sorts of ways, culturally speaking, cinema, or television, or whatever. And most of us go to do our PhD, as I did, in developed world. And then we are accustomed in understanding.
One of the main things we've been sort of struggling for in our dialogue with them is for developed country scholars to realize that we are dealing with a different kind of an animal, and that this animal has specific forms of behavior that standard global theory does not necessarily explain quite well, that we need to adapt our thinking to the special features of the societies we are looking at. So this dialogue, development versus underdevelopment, is a very major field in which Globelics is making an important inroad.
The interesting thing is that in the past, up until not so long ago, it was mostly people from developed countries that worked on developing countries. And now in this community, what you get more and more, and that is of course what is needed, is that scholars, including very young scholars from developing countries, get an opportunity to interact with people from developed countries who often had, better opportunities to train, go to better universities and all that kind of stuff. And not just learn from them, which is an important thing, the mentorship, but also challenge them, because of course some of the frameworks that the people from developed countries use are not entirely applicable to the situations and circumstances in developing countries. So when you have countries in which most of the population lives in the countryside, off fields essentially, doing technologically very, very simple things, as opposed to working in factories, which is more, or in service industries, which is more normal for developed countries, then what developed country scholars often do is kind of say, this is my framework now, let me use this framework for your reality, and it doesn't always fit. And they are not necessarily the best place because they don't live in these countries, to do something about this and change these frameworks, update them, modify them, and so on and so forth. And so it's very important that the people from developing countries that participate in these conferences get an opportunity not just to learn from the acknowledged experience and wisdom of the scholars from the first world, but also get a chance to say, actually, I think in this particular point you're wrong, and you got to look at this with a different lens.
Well, but this is not a problem of the people from the north. This is not a problem of the researchers that come from the north. This is a problem this is our problem. And this is a challenge that we have. We have to develop theories. We have to create theories. I'm not talking that we have to create a completely different theories. Yeah, we have to create on the basis of the knowledge already built, but we have to be more independent and try to be more creative, based on our realities.
From the global point of view, I think it's a positive gain to both sides. In other words, the greater the knowledge of advanced countries about problems of development, and the greater the knowledge of developing countries, what are the potential contributions of advanced countries to their own economies and societies. And I think the personal links and networks that are being created, it's an ideal context in which both sides can benefit. On the other hand, benefits are probably not only the simple profit maximizing short-term benefits that we study in economics, the benefits are probably much more in terms of, let's say, improving the world in some sense, improving diminishing the international inequality in the distribution of income and wealth, the gaps in income, technology, and so forth between advanced and developing countries, and so forth. I think so. The ideological component and the long-term benefit is no less important than the short-term profit maximization of each country. And certainly, the agents that we're talking about are agents from academia, and so they're not motivated. You know, Luke Sutter and Benoke Lundvall and the other people, and Dick Nelson and so forth. They're all people from academia, and people from academia have a different set of motivations, I think, than the usual profit maximization agents that we get from simple neoclassical economic theory. And ideology plays a role, and some broader issues about society, the economy, and now in the last 10 years, I would say the planet and the climate change and so forth are becoming more and more important.
Creativity is global, yes? And you could also argue that research creativity is also very much dependent on diversity. And so global diversity in terms of talent, in terms of ideas, is something you should always like to enhance or at least profit from. So the broader, the more international, the more diversified your research community, the better in terms of research ideas, contributions to your research field.
A shared commitment, a shared concern about more equal, better developed global. That is kind of a shared concern, you know, for the goodness, both the developed and the developing world.
Well, I think it's taken us a long time historically in terms of coming to a realization that we all occupy a single planet, and the opportunities, especially generationally, for us to continue what we have been doing up to now is increasingly becoming less. So that's a very important point. So the idea between North and South, more developed and less developed, it's becoming less of a mere geopolitical issue, but an issue around separation. The ways in which we can actually integrate what we need to do to save the planet, and through that save our species, is forcing a different type of relationship. So Globelics, I think, should be acknowledged for at least pushing the envelope further than any other a group of development economists in bringing a closer relationship between North and South, well before the issue about a global ecological crisis appeared on the horizon.